don't we start with Kathleen, if you don't mind?
You know, I support immigration. I support legal immigration. And the one thing that our country hasn't done is secure our borders, and I believe we need to secure our borders. Absolutely, we need to secure our borders. You know, my ancestors all immigrated here, and I think we need to continue to allow people to come to the greatest country in the world. But we need to let them do it illegally. And I don't believe that we just automatically just excuse. But what I would say is for everybody that wants to come to this country should have a pathway. They should have a way to legally come into this country and be citizens. And that's what we need to work on, is good sound policy that allows people to come here legally. But we can't get there unless we secure our borders, because, and I've talked to many people who've gone through the process and come here legally, and it's not an easy process. It is a difficult process. And then they get frustrated when they just automatically allow people who came illegally to stay and benefit, and it's not right. It's not fair. We need to do it. We need to do it sound consistently so people know what to expect and how to get there. And we need to enforce it. It can't just be sound bites.
And Mr. Bircher?
Yes, my grandfather, Salvatore Americo Lupino, Americo because he's the only one born in America in his whole family. So I come from immigrants as well. They went through the process. I agree with almost any measure that doesn't first secure the borders is specious in my view, because that has to be the first place. There is nothing wrong, and I think everything right about any country, about any entity. We certainly secure the borders of our homes and our yards. Why does that attenuate as we get closer to our borders? To me, obeyance of our law. That's, you know, as a lawyer, I'm a process guy. You can't break my law and then come in and tell me, you know, what you should get for benefits or anything else. You're here illegally. That status cannot be tolerated. And when it's amazing where we've gotten on this. So secure the borders and no amnesty. Obey our laws. That's my simple position.
I think illegal immigration ultimately is a taxpayer issue, right? Because I think all of us are in favor of diversity, legal immigration, the fact that we can attract people who are either seeking freedom in the United States or seeking education or job opportunities here. There needs to be an opportunity to do that legally. The concern is with illegal immigration, the cost of resources that are being expended on those who have broken the law. If I walked outside on the street here and broke the law, I would expect to be penalized for breaking the law. It goes to enforcement. It goes to enforcing what we currently have on the books. And honestly, I think the first step we need to make, I would not have supported Senator Rubio's current bill, although I respect him immensely for putting so much of his political career on the line to try to solve a very hard problem. I think the first step we need to take is a very simple step. Let's increase enforcement on businesses hiring undocumented workers. It's already on the books. It's already illegal. Let's enforce it. There's two parties in that transaction. Fortunately, the best visibility we have is to the employer. Here's my concern. Just because we use the term undocumented instead of illegal doesn't make it any better, doesn't make it right, doesn't make it legal. There has to be some form of remediation for those who have broken the law. There should be a penalty for breaking the law. But it starts first with enforcement.
Thank you. And our last question, Brad, do you still have a question?
Sure. Thank you, Robin. Thanks for making this forum available. It's been very informative. Thank you, candidates, for all coming. My question is, everyone alluded to running for office for the purpose of public service. They've also mentioned the bureaucracies that do exist in Washington. My question would be, in the future, if you're elected, will you continue to seek re-election in the career model of becoming a career congressman, or are you going to limit your public service to a certain amount of terms? And I open that question to all three of you.
Since we started with Kathleen on the last one, why don't we start with Mr. Bircher on this one and work our way down the road.
Yeah, it's a really good question, because my study of history tells me that the framers could not envision a career politician. Franklin summed it up. Benjamin Franklin, if you have a taste for law or sausage, it's the best thing you ever made. I think it's like a homeowners association. In nobody really wants to do it, but somebody's got to do it. And it's that function that you cannot do in your house. Street lights and sidewalks and tennis courts and the sewer and all that. You can't do that in the same way that the federal government, no state legislature could do it. Somebody has to do it. So I believe, as a representative, I would want to serve as long as I thought I was, well, one, I would serve at your pleasure, because every 2 years you would give me a report card on that, and I believe in that process strongly. But for me, now I'm much older than the other candidates. I don't think I would stay as long as others. David Jolly could serve 9 terms and be my age today. So, but I think I'd want to go. I'd want to try and, same thing I've done my whole life. I served in the military. I believed in service there. I stayed longer. Here, I don't know what that would be, but I don't think it would be as long as I could. I think it would be as long as I could contribute and try and set the precedent for other people to make our government more limited and more responsive and inside the Constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Jolly.
Listen, I think that's a great question, because it talks to some of the systemic problems that we have in Washington, D.C. This is about public service, and the fact that if somebody wasn't doing their job, they should be sent home. I don't subscribe to arbitrary term limits simply because I don't believe that's constitutionally appropriate. But I can tell you the concern I have is at the state level, in state capitals, with gerrymandering. I think what has created so much of the problem today is the fact that we have created these supermajority districts within states. You can look at the polarization in the past 20 years of our politics, and it's because state capitals, in order, if they're controlled by Democrats or Republicans, they try to shore up as many federal seats as they can. So when they redistrict, they create seats in which members of one party have to run too far to the right or too far to the left, and you aggregate that and put it in Washington, D.C., and we see the polarized politics we have today. I don't know that there's a solid fix to that. I mean, I think, listen, we would be asking our state capital, our state representatives, when it comes, and in this case also the governor, to have more balanced district maps at the federal level, to create more balanced district maps. At the end of the day, the voters will decide who they want to represent them. We should hold the representatives as accountable as possible. And when we have supermajority districts, it's hard to hold them accountable, because we know that based on voter registrations. Look, if you look at Kathy Castor's district over in Tampa, I have great respect for Kathy Castor, but frankly, she could not show up for work for 100 days and she'd probably still get elected, because that district is designed to make sure that the Democrats hold that seat. It simply is. Just as we have Republican seats in Florida that are designed to make sure Republicans hold those.
Yeah, and that's a federal law that would have to be changed to fix that. You know, in Florida, we're experiencing term limits, and I can tell you, at the time when we put that on the ballot, I was a proponent of the term limits, because, you know, even at the local level, I knew some folks that have just been there forever, and, you know, they vote on something, and 10 minutes later they'd say, I'm gonna vote on that bill, because they just couldn't remember. Sometimes, you know, some people shouldn't be there, and they keep getting in there because of their name or their familiarity, and people don't necessarily watch their elected officials to see if they're effectively doing their job. And so I really was a proponent of term limits. However, now that we've had to live with them for a little while, I've also seen the unintended consequences that I think are negative, and they hurt us. And it was one of the big things I had to fight this last year in the state legislature, and it doesn't matter what level of government you're talking about. When you have 8 is enough, like we do in Florida, suddenly you've got staff that is empowered so much. They've got the institutional knowledge, and the bureaucratic process, what they end up entwining and stopping, it can prohibit the elected officials from even doing their job. And I can give you the example of the bill that I fought to repeal taxes that multifamily homeowners were having to pay, where single-family homeowners weren't. And it was an unfair tax that should have been taken care of years ago. And for 4 years, our seasoned legislators couldn't get that bill passed. And why? When I went up there and I found out, it was because the staff had so much power resulting from term limits that they were able to derail that bill moving through to protect our citizens at every single level. And it wasn't until we had somebody like myself who was willing to take on staff, and I mean we took on staff. It was not an easy process. I almost felt like we declared war, but when I had a staff member in my office look at me and say, you know, we only have to put up with you for 22 more days and you're out of here. And I looked at that man and I said, well, you know what, that's gonna be the worst 22 days of your life. So it took this freshman with gumption to take on staff to make sure that we were doing the right thing and representing our citizens. And so that's an unintended consequence that comes from term limits. So I believe my opinion is, and I've always said this, as long as I'm being effective and the people want me to represent them, sir, I will. And the minute I am no longer effective, I have no business being there. And the minute I am no longer representing the people, I have no business being there. It isn't about protecting special interests and pushing a special interest agenda. It's about serving the citizens in the district that you represent. And you certainly better know that district and know those citizens that you're going to represent.
Okay, in the essence of time, and I do know there are a few people here that have additional questions. However, we do want to give our candidates an opportunity for our 2-minute closing comments. So I would ask the candidates, are you going to stick around for a few moments in case that there are more questions? Okay, so you have an opportunity to ask that question one-on-one. I now will ask you each to provide about a 2-minute closing comment to leave everyone here with. And this time we'll start far down with Mr. Charlie.
Thank you again for letting us be here this morning. Listen, we've had a great opportunity to talk about issues. At the end of the day, we are all involved in the job application process. We have lost a man with 43 years of seniority that can get remarkable things done for this district. Somebody said, are you running to replace Mr. Young? Nobody's going to replace Mr. Young. I'm asking for the opportunity to follow Mr. Young. And in doing so, I believe I bring qualifications that are unique to this race. We will be electing somebody who's the most junior member of Congress. And it will require experience and knowledge to be effective and make an impact in this district on day one. When I talked about the jobs that exist in the defense and high-tech manufacturing industry here locally, that's experience and that's knowledge as to how we continue to preserve those jobs. That's important. The ability to work within a very complex federal budget to get things done. Listen, the question was asked about lobbying. There are 435 lobbyists in Washington, D.C. My friend Tony DiMatteo just said it in the paper. It's a great line. There's 435 lobbyists in Washington, D.C. working on behalf of their congressional district. I'm asking for the opportunity to go up and fight for this congressional district, to advocate for the people of this congressional district. And I believe my experience uniquely qualifies me to do that. Thank you for letting us be here.
Thank you. And Kathleen?
And I reiterate that on experience because of the experience that I bring to this. My experience isn't working with Washington, and you know, I've been up there, I've talked to them. To me, Washington's broken, and so I'm not bringing the experience of working with a broken system. What I bring is the experience of working with Pinellas County and working with Florida. And writing policy and voting on policy and walking the talk. To work for the Chamber of Commerce, I understand that it's only going to be through economic development, pro-business, that we can ensure people have a job and we have a strong workforce training. That's the experience I bring. So what do we have to do to grow this country to be strong again? I protected my city, keeping taxes low, strengthening our city, our county, and I've done the same thing in Florida. We have repealed bad regulations, overburdensome government that has prohibited business growth and growing our economy and promoting jobs and making sure that families can protect their family and take care of their family. That's what's most important. We have to have strong families. If we don't have strong families, we don't have strong communities. If we don't have strong communities, we don't have a strong country. That's what we need. We have to take it back down to understanding our local community to make sure every single family is strong so we have a strong country. And that's the experience I bring. Working for the Chamber of Commerce, being pro-business, ensuring that people have jobs, and our families are strong, our communities are strong, and not being overseen burdensome with government. That's the experience I bring. And I've got a strong track record through open government that anybody can look and see I'm walking the talk, I'm not giving up attitudes. I've got great experience writing policy and voting on good policy that strengthens our community.
And Mr. Bircher?
I think my background is what is my strongest qualification. You go through a lot of filters on your way to 33 years of service, and almost every one of those filters is a board of dispassionate people deciding whether you're going to be moving up or taking jobs of ever-increasing responsibility. At least a dozen times in my life, I was looking at an airplane that I'd never flown before, and I had to figure it out. Is that a qualification for this job? I don't think so, but it does represent the ability to understand what a goal is and what advocacy is, because you had to do it for yourself. Leadership is not position. Leadership is action. Leadership is getting things done. And in that context, getting things done to me means every dollar that comes out of the 13th Congressional District to go to Washington is one less dollar that comes to your deli or your business or your hotel, your beach. When I was in the service, I spent government money like my own. And I made sure everybody underneath me did too, because not everybody's imbued with that belief. You know, it's free because the government's paying for it. So I think what I bring is the idea that if you think you can spend your money better than a bureaucrat in Washington can, if you think you know how to take care of yourself and your family better than an imperial decree from Washington, and if you think your federal government should work for you rather than you work for your federal government, I hope you'll consider my candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would leave you with that if either one of the three of you are elected, don't forget who elected you and who you worked for. I want to leave you with a few parting words, and this is just a chip off the major glacier should one of these candidates get elected to Congress to serve in D.C. Flood insurance, small business, fiscal responsibility, regulation control, jobs, oil drilling ban, proximity of Florida compared to other states, beaches, collaboration of governors, commercial issues, access, open, transparency, stay in touch with constituents, education, no child left behind, work together, secure borders, two-term limit or not two-term limit, policy, and advocacy. And remember, it is a job application. So we want to thank all three of our candidates that came out today. The Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber thanks you as well. If you haven't seen the fact sheet that Deborah Clark has sent out, and we have copies of it and have passed it around, please keep in mind that to cast your ballot, if you did a mail-in, it has to be returned to the polling locations by January, 7 p.m. election day. Return it. Out of 170,037 registered Republicans, 78,447 were requested mail ballots. And as of this mailer, which was given to me on Saturday morning, 22,311 mail ballots have been returned. So keep that in mind. Thank you very much, everyone. Annual dinner, Attorney General Pambani, this Thursday at the Trade Winds.